This is for Rachel. Just so I heard you correctly, you said that you went to the surrogacy agencies and all but one rejected you because you said you wanted a same-sex couple?
No.
Or did I not?
No, just we applied to quite a few agencies and they didn't want me for whatever reason.
Oh, so it was
I don't know why they turned me down as a
Okay.
surrogate.
Okay, and are you in LA?
I am about an hour and a half north of LA, but we also used, the fertility specialist that we used was also in LA, so I drove back and forth, which wasn't too bad. It's better than a flight, I will definitely admit. And I was even able to go home almost immediately after transfer, and I got to spend my bed rest at home. So being semi-local was really nice, really nice.
Okay, thank you. I think you're a really great person.
Thank you.
Mary, okay, I'm just going to ask something. Both Mary and Rachel, friendships, relationships that you may have damaged or lost because of what you've done?
No. There was a little pushback from like my parents or, you know, people that I didn't know that well that may have, were like, two dads, that's interesting or something like that. But no, nobody close to me. And I'm a lesbian too, so if they did have a problem with it, they probably would have mentioned it by now. But no, I think most everybody was pretty understanding about it. And even after I explained everything to my father again, he was like, you know, I understand, it's a good thing, you know, it's fine, you know.
We got to meet her father too, which was
yeah,
actually
he came after the birth.
Really
and,
a little scary, but actually really great, really great.
Why was it scary?
Because Mary said he was going to ask us a bunch of questions, and I didn't know what he was going to ask. So I was a little bit like, okay, you know, here we got the baby, and we're almost out of here, and the dad comes in. No, I'm just kidding. But
with my first journey, he actually showed up at the hospital, and he's like, well, I'm going to talk to these guys and make sure that. And I'm like, I'm not 16, Dad. This is not.
Did he have a shotgun?
Right?
Yeah.
And so he came in and he's like, I just want to make sure that everybody's going to be open. You can't just walk away and leave this child with questions. And I'm like, Dad, we've already gone over all this stuff. He's like, just let me take care of it. I'm like,
but he was very chill when
yeah.
he came.
And then,
yeah,
so that he just wanted to show up and meet the baby and
wanted to observe and just
approve,
make sure.
I think, was a big part of it.
Our
so.
surrogate's mother wanted to be in the delivery room.
Wow.
And that was never part of the deal. And she was going to fly. Ours happened really quick. Our daughter was born 3.5 weeks early. We went in for a regular checkup. We were going to leave the hospital. We were going to leave and go buy diapers and get all the stuff ready. And the doctor said, you don't have enough amniotic fluid. We're going to induce you tonight. Luckily, she had come down 3 days before thinking we'd have 4 weeks together before the birth. And she'd brought her son, who was 2, who we found out that night had hand, foot, and mouth disease, which is basically a mouth filled with blisters. So, of course, I take him down to the cafeteria and get him French fries with ketchup, which you don't do that. So anyway, and she was upset because she wasn't expecting it, but luckily her mother and her husband flew down. You know, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, my mother said, you're having a baby, I'm going to be in the delivery room with you. And I don't know what she said. They had a private conversation, but she said, you can't do that, you know. And, you know, she accepted it, but she wanted to be there.
I have lost friends over this, but the friends that I've lost, I've gained so many surrogate friends and intended parents, friends, and I don't see it as a loss. But it was never, oh, you're going to carry somebody else's baby. It was the I'm caring for a same-sex couple that bothered people, which is fine. It's, you know, their opinion, and this is my opinion, and this is what I wanted to do, and that's, it doesn't matter anymore.
So there was some discordance already between how you saw the issue of same-sex couples with babies and how they saw the issue.
Right.
You know, I asked this to, this is kind of a follow-up, but I asked this to Mary also, but what was the most inappropriate thing anybody ever said to you?
You know, I can't think of anything inappropriate that people have asked me because I've been so open. Anytime anybody asked, oh, when's your baby due? Oh, this isn't my baby. And I'll explain it to you. I'm caring for a same-sex couple. You know, whatever they wanted to know, by all means, ask me. It was never, I never felt like there was an inappropriate question or a question too personal because I love talking about what I did. Every single aspect of it, from applying to agencies to the fertility doctors, to every single aspect of it, I enjoy talking about. So there was never an inappropriate, or a question that I felt was inappropriate or too, you know, personal.
You guys are pretty amazing.
These
if I
women,
can say so.
they are amazing, and all of the women who I've ever met who've done that, they're a different breed. They are amazing women who do this.
So we had another question in the audience.
I actually have two questions. I'm not sure if I'll get a chance to ask again. So the first one is regarding breastfeeding. Obviously, there's been a lot of knowledge about it being beneficial. So generally speaking, with surrogacy, how did the two of you handle that? And I guess in general, how is that issue addressed for the babies? And the second one is relating to sort of what you've somewhat addressed already about the unintended consequences of having done this with either of your spouses. Did that changed the relationship with your spouses at all afterwards? So I guess the breastfeeding question is the first one.
For nursing, I knew going into it that I wanted to nurse, but it was ultimately up to the fathers. The closer and closer we got, the more and more research I presented them with. This is beneficial to your baby, and that's the ultimate goal. You know, what can we do to benefit this baby? And in the end, they decided to let me nurse. I nursed for 3 days in the hospital. I would have loved to continue nursing, and it was never for the bonding experience with baby. It was always for the more I nurse, the quicker I will produce milk so I can pump for you and for baby. It was never a bonding experience for me. We actually, I had one of the fathers holding baby while I was nursing, and they would talk to baby while he was nursing, and I would just kind of veg out and watch TV and have a conversation with my husband, and I never wanted it to seem like a bonding experience for me. I always wanted them to be there and them to be hands-on, you know, with baby and communicating with baby so that baby would hear their voice and never associate me with the bond of feeding.
But do you feel like nursing made it more difficult to separate?
No, not at all, because I knew that I was only going to nurse in the hospital unless they had approached me outside of the hospital and, oh, you know, baby needs to be fed, would you mind? And I would absolutely have done it, but I knew they weren't going to ask. It didn't matter. The separation didn't matter. Yeah.
Okay, Mary, how about you?
So yeah, we discussed it. I discussed it with both sets of dads. I think prior to the pregnancy and during the pregnancy, it was mostly up to them. But I'm like, you know, in the first few days, it's really kind of important to, you know, the benefits that go along with breastfeeding to give the kid that kind of jump start on antibodies and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I nursed both of them in the hospital and while they were in town. And my first set of intended dads were in Dallas, so it was easy to pump and ship. Christina, they hung around for a week or so after the birth. Yeah. And so I would drive over there every day and nurse her and then pump when I wasn't there. And Hawaii made it a little difficult. I knew that shipping was just not an option because it was all going to be defrosted and wasted, and they were
Yeah, so it's
enough.
an interesting story that happened.
I was going to ask you to detail that.
Yeah, we we obviously wanted to pump and send, and when we found out we couldn't do that, and this is one of those things where if you just broadcast it to the world, like somebody will come and respond. A friend of ours, cousin, who's a nurse, who has 5 children, she just had her 5th, she is overproducing milk, and she actually pumped and froze and delivered coolers to our house for 6 months. And so we gave her breast milk from another woman, but still it was breast milk, and it was great, you know, colostrum and all that good stuff was in there. And we used it, and we paid her, in gift cards, because she's like, no, I can't even use it, So it was just one of those, like, somebody's watching over us right now, because it just kind of dropped out of the sky. But that's because we were talking about it to everybody in our social circles, and somebody mentioned it to somebody else, and they called us and said, do you want this? And we said, yes. So it was an interesting situation and unique, but it happened because we were just blabbing about it all.
And I feel,
go ahead.
Sorry, the nursing for me as a surrogate was kind of a natural progression. Like I went from providing all of her oxygen and all of her food to some of her food or most of her food for a few days, and then kind of it just naturally progressed to from me taking care of her to them taking care of her. So.
Yeah, because I know in India they don't allow the surrogates to nurse at all.
Oh, they don't.
At least at the clinic we worked with, and I think a lot of the intended fathers would have liked the babies, especially because of the colostrum,
right.
to have been nursed for a day or two.
When we did it, I don't think it was being done. I mean, I remember even when we asked the agency, can we get someone who'll breastfeed, they were like, what? You'd have to talk to her about that, because it was, again, it was sort of in the early part of this. But luckily, we found Heather, and she said she'd be willing to do it. And she, like you, she stayed at our house for about 8 or 9 days after, but the hospital for 3 days, then our house for a week. And she breastfed in the hospital, and she breastfed through the week. But she really, it was sort of like what you said. She really, when people said, how are you going to give this baby up? She said, it's not my baby, it's their baby. And my whole journey has been about helping a family who couldn't have a child. And my reward is seeing them become a family. It was very, very what you said. But she did breastfeed, and then she pumped, and she would ship and freeze it and send it down by Greyhound bus. So then I would go to the bus station and pick up this big box, and they were like, oh, that's such a big box. And I said, well, it's breast milk, and they were like, what? And we'd never heard that
Everybody's
before.
shipping bodily fluids all over the place.
I know, it was crazy, but she pumped for 3 months, which gave us about 4 months of formula, and we still have the last baggie in our freezer. We've never defrosted it. It's 12 years old. We show it to our daughter.
You're supposed to put it under your pillow for good luck.
We call it her liquid gold, and it was great. Before Heather left, she had already started to pump, and I remember we went to the post office one day, and you can plug it into the car lighter, these pumps. It's like...
Oh, I thought you meant the breast milk.
I mean, it's really like those things they milk cows. I mean, it's like this pumping machine, and it makes this slurping noise and everything. So anyway, we go to pull up in front of the post office so I can mail a letter, but it was on her side. So I said, could you mail these while she's hooked up, So she rolls the window down, and she goes to stick the things, and this guy comes up from the other side to mail his letter. And you've never seen such a look on anybody's face in your life. I mean, she was like, hi, have a nice day. He ran.
We have to wrap up shortly, but I wanted to be sure we got to your second question. Did we get to it?
Did your relationships change with your spouses?
Nope.
I'm single.
Well, that makes it easy then.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to our panelists.